This podcast, Driven by Hughes, was brought to you by Hughes Chauffeur-Driven Services.
Okay, well, welcome to the Driven by Hughes podcast. We're in the back of a limousine here, brought to you by Hughes Chauffeur Services, and I'm with Leanne Pilkington, the CEO of Laing+Simmons. Welcome, Leanne.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is unique, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is.
Haven't done too many podcasts in the back of a...
No, I've done a lot of podcasts,
Yes.
but never in the back of a limo.
When I first asked you, Laing+Simmons, you're the CEO
Yep.
and a real industry leader, one of the first female CEOs
Yep.
in the real estate industry, which
Certainly
has been a very male-dominated industry for a long time.
Sure is.
How did you get into real estate in the first place?
I blame my dad.
Yeah?
Dad had three real estate businesses in the
Okay.
Hills district,
Yep.
and I started answering the phones for him as a 12-year-old on a Sunday,
Wow.
delivering the letterbox drops and all that sort of stuff. And I started working for him when I finished school.
Nice.
I've pretty much been in it the whole time. So that's 40 years, with the exception of 3 years as a recruiter.
Wow. And did I read somewhere that you went away after school to schoolies and you asked your dad for some money and
Honestly,
said, come and work with
I
me?
need to stop putting these things out there, right? People know too much
Yeah,
about me.
yeah.
But yeah, it's very true. I was planning on being a school teacher.
Okay.
And I did, I went to schoolies on the Gold Coast, and yes, schoolies did exist way back
Yes,
then.
yes.
And I ran out of cash and rang Dad, and he said, yeah, Dad's always one,
Yeah.
to make sure he gets the good end of the deal.
Good on
so,
him,
yeah,
yes.
I'll send you some cash, but you need to come and work for me when you get when you get home. So I did that. I was planning on going to uni to be a school teacher, but I enjoyed having a full-time job and getting the money, and ended up studying. I stayed with Dad until I was about 26 or 27, but I studied to become a valuer and a real estate agent and an auctioneer. So I did all of my study part-time and worked for Dad 7 days a week.
Do you think you need... and I think I know the answer to this, but as a CEO,
Yep.
it's great to have the experience across all the different facets of the business, isn't it?
It absolutely
Yeah,
is. And I genuinely do. I started
Yeah.
as a receptionist. I've been a property manager.
Yeah.
I've been commercial leasing. I was a shopping centre manager. So
Wow,
I
okay.
have that real breadth of experience across the industry, as well as, of course, being a salesperson.
Fantastic. And in your time in real estate, how much has it changed, particularly in recent times, do you think?
Massively. But
Yeah.
if I'm honest, I've been in real estate 40 years, and the first probably 30. Nothing changed a lot.
Okay.
And it was really only since technology. The internet's pretty much changed everything for everybody, right?
It has, yeah.
And we always say that technology won't take over a real estate agent's job, but an agent that uses technology in a smart way will take over from agents that continue to stick their head in the sand.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
We're obviously in Hughes limousine at the moment.
How good is that? They're very comfortable.
Now, do you do much travelling yourself personally?
Yes.
Yes?
I do.
Any tips?
Any tips? Yeah. Any tips? Well, put it on the calendar, firstly, because I sometimes get to the airport and go, hold on a minute.
Yeah, where am I
going? And I have to stand there and really think about where I'm going. So it's just trying to be organised. So for me, I do a lot of speaking at events.
Okay.
So I need to think about what I'm wearing. For
Yes,
example,
sure.
do I need to plug in a microphone? Am I going to be sitting on a high stool? So no mini skirts allowed.
There
that
you go.
kind of.
Well, it's
that
good
kind of
advice,
stuff.
yeah. And do you have a favourite destination to travel to in Australia and internationally, or?
I just like to go anywhere and everywhere, but my sister's got a place in Mooloolaba on the
Lovely,
Sunshine Coast,
beautiful.
and so that would be my most frequent destination. And my husband loves Asia, so we do a lot of travel in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I just turned 50, and I just had a fantastic trip to France, Sicily, and Greece. So
Amazing.
Amazing,
We're planning
yeah.
for that next year.
Yeah, well, I can highly recommend Mykonos. It's a great.
It's the place to go. I can only imagine the trouble you caused in Mykonos, my friend.
Well, I have my 3 kids there, so not too much at all. But you talked about planning your trips. Is there a process you have to go through, or is it? Are you that organised?
I am.
Yeah.
I am really organised with it because I have to be. I mean, in this month alone, I've got trips to the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast, New Zealand twice,
Wow, gee, okay.
Melbourne, and the list goes on. So I'm literally only home this month for a day or two in between. And so I need to be really clear on what I'm doing, why I'm going, and as simple as it sounds, check the weather before you go. It's nuts, right? Yeah.
Is there something you always pack when you travel? Is it a must-have?
No, other than my phone charger, no. I'm known for my colourful and sparkly fashion, and so I always make sure that I've got. I pack in outfits, so I do one outfit at a time. I know it's not a bloke thing, but I've got to have the shoes and the handbag and the earrings.
Well, it makes sense. You've got to be prepared.
Yeah, you do.
Organised. I was going to ask you any celebrity stories from your travel. My background was cricket, and I was fortunate enough to sit next to the late, great Richie Beno.
Oh, wow.
Many years ago.
Amazing.
And the air hostess walked up and said, "Mr. Beno?" He said, "Yes." And she said, "Would you like some wine?" He said, "Yes." And she said, "Red or white?" He goes, "Both." Do you have any celebrity stories? Have you bumped into anyone or sat next to
I'm
you?
so boring. I don't, I really don't. The only thing that I could say to you is that I went to school with Rhett Hutchins, Michael's brother.
Wow.
And my sister was best friends with the Farris brothers' little sister. And so I went to pick her up from their place. They lived around the corner from me in Belrose. And I went to pick her up, and Andrew Farris opened the door in his boxer shorts.
There you go.
So that's a celebrity story, but boy, was it a long time ago.
Yes. I don't want to see Andrew in his boxer shorts these days.
No comment. I'm going to leave that alone.
I want to ask you about, you're involved with the Sister2Sister Foundation.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So Sister2Sister is a foundation for at-risk and troubled girls.
Yes.
And it is a trauma-informed program. So a lot of the girls that we spend time with have suffered significant trauma.
Yeah.
And it's a mentoring program. So I got involved in 2009. I was a big sister.
Yeah.
So it's a one-on-one mentoring program. We only have 30 girls, 30 big sisters and 30 little sisters at any one time.
That's very manageable, isn't it?
Yeah. And it goes for a year. And so they're really developing strong bonds and relationships.
Yeah.
And I got into it because I wanted to be a positive role model for girls that didn't have that in their life.
Yeah.
And I was a big sister for 2 years in a row. Then I became a team leader. And earlier this year, I was appointed chair of the foundation,
Well done.
which is just, it's just amazing. So we're working really hard on getting the program organised again for next year. It's amazing. I'm so blessed to be
I
involved.
can imagine with spending that long a year with someone, you become very emotionally
really close.
attached. Yeah,
you do.
Yeah.
And so
Like long-term bonds will be created.
and whilst the program, the formal program only lasts for a year, the relationship can go on. So my little sister that I first met in 2009, we're still in touch, and she's now a married mum living out in the country, and she's really got a life together. So
isn't that a great story?
Yeah, it is. It's so nice, and there's so many really positive stories that come out of it.
Yeah, it's important. I think we always say we're very fortunate in this country, and if you've got the ability to influence, and I always say it's not hard to be nice. But spend a little bit of time, and you reap the rewards yourself personally.
And I had a very typical middle class upbringing. I had a dad who always believed I could do anything that I wanted to, and I had a mum who worked really hard. But it's amazing how many people don't have that support behind them.
They don't. You take it for granted if you've got a nice
you really
family.
do.
Yeah,
it's true.
I was going to ask you, interesting question, just this is my own personal thing here, but travelling, and you're being in real estate.
Yep.
Airbnb versus hotel. What was your choice?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I typically do hotels. Just because I feel safer.
Okay.
And I don't mean that from a physical perspective. I mean, I know there's going to be someone there with the key, and I feel comfortable with all of that.
Yeah.
But I've got lots of friends that swear by Airbnb.
Yeah, my wife's she doesn't want to do Airbnb. She said if we go away on holidays, I don't have to pick up towels. I want to do it at home with the kids all the time.
I'm with her. Yeah, I'm with her on that. Absolutely.
And what about, do you have any favourite restaurants? So when I go to Melbourne, I always have to go to Coda restaurant in Melbourne for me personally.
Oh yeah, Coda's amazing. And because I eat out way too much. So Gold Coast, you can't go past Rick Shaw's.
Yes, brilliant.
How good is that?
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a great vibe.
Yeah, it really is. Sydney, I love Lunaloo, actually, down on the harbour, down near the Parkway.
I've not been there.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, Sydney, we've got, how could you actually pick in Sydney? There's so many.
We're so lucky here, and with the food, it's Sydney's changed a lot. I think I was just saying the other day when I got back from being overseas in Greece, there seems to be a lot of rules in Sydney.
A lot of rules.
There's a lot of
in
rules
comparison
to Greece. Yeah.
What, like pay tax?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think they pay tax now.
Oh,
They've just started.
Outrageous.
Yeah, who would have thought? But we do live in a very, very safe area.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're incredibly lucky. And I think one of the things that you really appreciate with travelling is coming back, flying into Sydney of a morning with the sun coming up and the harbour glistening and the Opera House. It really does make you realise what a beautiful part of the world we live in.
I remember sitting in in a plane with the New South Wales cricket team. We flew in. One of the senior players, Steve Small, said to me, "Shane, look down at every one of those houses down there. You represent one of those, so don't let them down."
How powerful is that?
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit nervous as well.
Absolutely.
Laing+Simmons, I think you said 52 offices
52 offices around New South Wales, yep.
What are we looking forward to? Where's Laing+Simmons taking the real estate industry as opposed to anyone else?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been with Laing+Simmons since 1995.
Okay.
Yes, I was only 12 when I started, obviously.
Yes.
And I only bought the business with some other shareholders 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so literally, it's a funny story. One of the things I do with my corporate team, I've been running Laing+Simmons for a long time, and we write a letter to ourselves every year at the end of the year to be read at the end of the following year. So these are the things that we want. I had the best year ever, and this is what I did.
Gotcha.
And in 2019, I couldn't write that letter. I was sitting there and I really, I did a lot of soul searching. I looked at actually changing jobs, which is a big call when you've been somewhere that long. And then I realised actually that I couldn't leave because I feel like Laing+Simmons is my family. And so I rang the owners, I rang the CEO and said, "You're going to have to talk to the board. You need to sell us because I can't work here anymore."
Wow.
I know. How cheeky was that? Like,
so, and how did they respond to that?
Well, I was pretty confident that they wouldn't want to run the business without me because they were quite hands-off.
Yep.
And as it happened, it was really good timing for them. They wanted to liquidate for various reasons. And so they went, okay. And so we started negotiating with a variety of bigger brands. And I was on a call. At the time, I was the president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales. So that's our peak body for industry.
Yep.
And I was doing some work with somebody that we were negotiating with who would have been my boss.
Yeah.
And he was shooting me. "You should do that. You should do this. You should do that." And I got off the phone and went, no,
you shouldn't be doing that.
That is not going to work. I should not do that. And so a couple of my franchisees had heard a whisper that we might be on the market, and they said, "You know what, Lee, if we'd like to actually buy it, but we'll only do it if you come in as well." And that, you know, I'm 60 now. I was 58 at the time. That's a big call at that age, right? To invest and to commit 10 years of your life, which is what I really had to do. Anyway, I didn't want any of my franchisees to be blindsided by that.
Yep.
So whilst we were still negotiating with other brands, I went out and I met every one of my business owners and said, "This is what we're thinking about doing." And remarkably, so many of them went, "Wow, okay, can we get in too?" And so by the end of it, I'm going, I've only got 1.25% left. So we've got 15 shareholders now in Laing+Simmons, and that's how it happened. So,
and I'm assuming you got massive buy-in with that as well. It was actually a good process, but without knowing what you were doing, probably.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've always been really transparent and collaborative, and I've been there so long, I just didn't want any of them to wake up tomorrow and go, "Laing+Simmons has been sold and you've bought in and we didn't know." Because that would have just
it's not the right thing to do.
So what's been great?
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Proud of yourself with that.
Yeah, hardest thing I've ever done, hardest decision I've ever made, but certainly the best. And I had a lot of stuff. So my frustration with the previous owners was as a result of having all of these ideas about where the industry was going, but not being able to implement anything. And so in the last 2.5 years, I've gone from 4 in my corporate team to 13, I think. And we've got a recruitment business, we've got a property management business, we've got what we call centralised agent support, which is back-end marketing, we've got trust accounting, and it's just we get one thing right, then we build on and put the next thing on. So trust accounting's just recent, we just launched that last week.
Well done. And final question, a young boy or girl wants to go into real estate, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Real estate is a much different job than people think it is.
Yep, okay.
So people don't ring up and go, "Hey, Leanne, will you sell my house?"
Yep.
Unless you've been in the industry for a really, really long time, right? And so it's not about, it's about finding those properties to sell.
Yep.
So you've got to be prospecting, you've got to be on the phones, you've got to be out in the community, you've got to be talking to people, you've got to get yourself known, liked and trusted in the local community. So
it's good old-fashioned business principles, isn't it?
It is, right? Face to face, belly to belly. Yes, social media can work. Yes, it absolutely helps. but you've got to have the relationship. And when it gets down to it, you as a homeowner need to really trust me and what I'm telling you.
Well, for most people, it's their biggest asset they have in their life.
Totally.
Yeah.
And people don't buy and sell very often. It's less and less frequent now.
Yep.
So the other, I would, if I was getting into it now, I'd be really clear on where I wanted to be. And it's not just about being in the eastern suburbs with the most beautiful properties.
Yeah.
It's where you feel home, where you're passionate about, where you're connected.
I agree.
You know, whether it's where you went to school or whether you grew up or wherever. And then look around and see what the agents are doing in your local area and find a brand or an office that resonates with you and your values, because real estate agents get a really bad rap. Some of them deserve it.
Yep.
But most of us are really good people, very generous people working in the community. We genuinely care about what we do. So make sure you find a business and a business owner that resonates with your values.
Well said. Well, we're here with Hughes Chauffeur Services, and what a fantastic way to cruise around. It's a lovely car, isn't
I
it?
love it. Absolutely. It is the best way to travel. And when you are travelling a lot for work, you can't always rely on cabs and Ubers to get you where you need to go. They don't come on time. Whereas I've never had a Hughes limo not be on time and not deliver me to where I need to be on time.
They go that extra yard, which is fantastic. Thanks for your time, Leanne. It's really,
Absolute
really nice
pleasure.
to meet you, and
thanks for having
great
me.
to chat. That went quick.
It did. Always.
Well
does.
done. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Driven by Hughes podcast. Be sure to subscribe or follow wherever you watch or listen. Hughes is Australia's original chauffeur service with a rich history dating back to the start of the 20th century. In that time, much has changed, but one thing has remained the same: our steadfast commitment to delivering a reliable, premium transport service wherever you need to go. With offices nationwide and a wide selection of vehicles to move 1 to 6 passengers in comfort and style, Hughes has your transport covered. Visit hughes.com.au today.